Hello, my podcast people, and thank you for joining me for yet another episode of my favorite online business podcast. If you are listening, tuning, watching on the day, I said tuning in, watching on the day that it drops, it is Monday, June 15th. Welcome to the middle of June, and happy Pride Month. I didn't say it last time because I'm a terrible gay. I'd be recording things before the day and then forgot. Let me move this mic. I don't like where it is. I tried to have the rainbows on behind me. Didn't really work as great as I wanted. But the other option was to have the ropes. Like, if you're listening to this, you're like, the ropes? What? I have neon lights on the ground, and it's called a rope. And I set the colors of them. And I said it's a rainbow this time. But, like, they didn't have it as a set scene, and then it was moving, and I was like, someone's going to have a seizure. So we're working with that. Happy Pride Month. I realize I haven't done life updates in a bit. It's been getting right into it. So I'm going to do that real quick. And then we'll hop into today's main topic, which is what to do when you outgrow your avatar. So we just got back from visiting Lex's parents upstate for her mom's birthday. It was a good trip, quick trip. I got the effects of food poisoning on the flight back home. 12 out of 10 do not recommend. 100 out of 10. 11 billion out of 10 do not recommend, but did make it, so bless up. I'm always grateful to be able to travel, but just like financially be able to do it, and the fact that we have planes and can travel, like you can wake up and then be on the other side of the country, that's fucking amazing. But I'm also so grateful to not be traveling. Like, I did it for so many years, and then last year we had a lot of weddings to go to, and I'm happy to not be traveling. I love being home. I hate going to the airport. I love coming back, but I hate dealing with people. People are dumb. I don't like dealing with them. So, yeah, happy to be home. But we do have a big trip, our very big trip coming up at the end of the month. We're going to Gstaad, Switzerland for the volleyball. So that's in like 21 days, which is 3 weeks. So I will have to batch some episodes, thinking that as I'm saying it. But that is a problem for future Maestro. What else? Tactic programming. It's going great. My knees are feeling really, really good. And it has been really good for me to work out in the morning first thing. Although I am recording this first thing before working out today. I need to switch it up just from a time perspective. But then I will just be at the desk from like 12 to 8 p.m. But I don't mind. Actually, that's why I'm recording this in the morning, because yesterday, my normal podcast day, I was working. And then by the time I was ready to record, the light was bad, and I'd rather just wait and record it in the morning. If you're watching, you see bright light. It's great. It's easier than dealing with the back lighting and everything like that, because literally the sun moves to the other side of the house, and then it's annoying to record. So, yeah. But the knees are feeling really good, and I'm really liking the schedule switch, especially with the sun staying up so late. Like that's why I can work till 8 p.m. because it's still sunny, it's still light out. But from a health perspective, if the knees are bugging, and I think we all have that. If something's bugging you, especially if you have like a problem area, everything else sucks. Life sucks. So I prioritize my physical well-being. It's also good for my mental well-being. And it helps get me through the shittiness. I'm also taking curcumin. I switched to a different one that Lex was taking, and I like this one better. I think it is helping. But it gets me through the shittiness of this fucking administration and the whack responses that I read on threads, not even threads, it's on Instagram, to Pride Month. People, stop being the worst. Even if maybe it's a bot. Hopefully it's a bot. But I'm like, stop being the fucking worst. But sometimes are videos. And I'm like, stop with your attention seeking. All these fucking AI companies and companies in general being the worst. Right? And the fact that the internet exposes you to the worst parts of humanity. But when I have good knees, I can deal with that. Right? So what else? I got 11 house projects to do. And I wish I could just do that. My guy Jojo, I know he's watching this right now because he edited it. I know you get it. I just want to be able to do some work. I got a door hanging off my thing that I have all my equipment in. It's like my little shed. They put it on the fucking door. They did a terrible job with it. So I got to rebuild that. I got some other stuff that I need to do, but that's like the big project. I got to cut up some pavers, turn them into like a bottom part of things. I got things I got to do, and I got no time. Right? It's one of those. I'll do it when life slows down, aka in 6 months, when I feel like that can be my procrastination of choice. But hopefully maybe this weekend, we'll see. The kids are doing great. Where's Rupert? Is he behind me? No, he's not behind me. He's on top of the chair. He's somewhere in here. Moose is doing great. The weather is great, as per always, because I live in the best place. I love living here. But the trip was nice because it's a little taste of summer, the summer heat. We don't really get that here, which I don't mind. It stays nice and right in the middle here. And speaking of being here, and it's the best, hooray for the primaries. Fuck Spencer Pratt. What in the actual fuck is going on? All right, let's jump into today's episode. Today, I want to share with you something that came to me while I was working out yesterday. But it's a topic that's kind of always bouncing around in my head because it's pretty central to running a personal brand and personal business, online business. And that is what to do when you outgrow your avatar. So I realized that that phrase is a little bit of like online biz parlance, right? Online biz speak. And I'm going to assume that most of you know what I'm talking about, but if you don't, it's all good. By avatar, I just mean your ideal client. And, that's the main person that you're trying to attract, that you're trying to help. So what do you do when you no longer want to help that person, right? What do you do when you no longer want to solve those problems? And I think that I'm going to guess, people like us do things like this. I'm going to guess that this is especially relevant for folks that are around my age, right? 41. And if you've been in the business and you've been doing online business, you've been doing this in your specific niche for an extended period of time, typically like 5 years plus. Right? Obviously, you are allowed to outgrow your avatar before then. But what I do see is folks like bouncing around before then, with who they help and the problem they solve, and they never get traction. And they just spend years and years getting traction, which is fine if you're like genuinely trying to figure out, your person. But it is something to consider, right? Are you bouncing around? Right? But for many of us, when you're working with the same folks and solving the same problems for a long time, at some point you're like, I'm bored. I don't want to do this anymore. That was me in physical therapy. I was like, all right, I'm good. Did it for 8 years. I've seen enough knees. I'm done. This is not to say that it's everyone's life experience, but if it is your experience, you're like, fuck, I'm done. I'm bored with this. You're not alone. Right? If it's not your experience and, after 10 years, you're still loving your demographic and you're still loving those same problems, bless. I love this for you. Not my story. Right? So for those of us who get the itch to move on, what do we do? I think we have 3 phases and thus 3 options. So I am never here to tell you to do shit that you hate, but I will say that breaking through the trust wall as a business owner, it takes time, right? As such, if you are less than like 2 years into this, working with this avatar, stick with it. And I'm saying this because I want to make sure that you're not over it because it's not quote unquote working, right? Money has a funny way of making things more enjoyable. Some folks will bounce and be like, fuck this avatar, right? Because they're not getting traction. And in reality, the thing that will help them get the traction, so they enjoy that avatar, enjoy those problems, is not bouncing. And so that's the first phase. If you're in that less than 2 year time period, I'm going to suggest you stick it out. Again, never here to tell you to do shit that you hate, but there is definitely a reality of the time it takes to break through the trust wall, the trust barrier. The second phase, which is, that kind of like 2 to 5 year mark, if you're in that spot, take advantage of being so far ahead of your avatar and teach everything you know, aka stack that paper, get that cheddar, right? This is actually where you should be. This is a good place to be in business, right? I really hate the sentiment that you just need to be one step ahead of your customer, one step ahead of your avatar. Perhaps in terms of building the thing, yeah, you can totally just be like one call ahead, right? I'm just one podcast ahead, but like one podcast episode ahead. But in terms of your knowledge base, you need to be 11 billion steps ahead of your customer, 11 billion steps ahead of your avatar. Right? You need to be able to answer the questions that they have and speak from experience, not just theory. Right? I've said this before, but then not in this episode, but in previous episodes. There will be times when you are straight up bored by what you're teaching your audience. Right? You still care about it, but the topic itself is behind your current interest. Right? You lived it and you were in it and in those things a long time ago. Good. That is where you should be. Teach from the scar, not the wound. Right? I think about this with my PT stuff. I was doing Wim Hof experiences. I was doing cold exposure stuff with Brian McKenzie way back in 2016. I didn't do my breathing course until 2018. And some of that shit didn't really take off till recently. Right? So if I had stayed in it, I would be that far ahead. Right? Your avatar will be and should be way behind you. Right? They should be way behind where you're at. Right? And what you're doing. Way behind. Your earliest adopters may be close, right? You may have like, I'm learning this thing, I'm really excited, I'm sharing about it. And your early people are like, yeah, let's go. Right? But the few, our early adopters are few. Right? And if you yourself are an early adopter, bless you, but that adds on more time to this because then you have to let folks catch up to the trend, right? Like I said, if I stuck around with in PT space, like I was doing Wim Hof, cold exposure, breathing, 2016. It is still like becoming a thing with people going into the cold plunges and things like that, right? And it's 10 years later. So the second phase of outgrowing your avatar is to simply take advantage of being so far ahead of them and teach everything you know. Teach everything you know, make all the sales, make all the money, because this is what's going to allow for the third phase, which is the pivot. Right? This is where you move on and, you move on to a new problem that you're solving, or you move on to a new avatar. Right? If you've been doing things for long enough, this can absolutely be the same person because they will come with you, but the avatar themselves will have changed. Meaning, I'm an example of this. I've been doing this for so long. I'm going into the messaging side of things. Or even when I made my switch from physical therapy content or movement content into online business content, completely different avatar, like completely different person that I'm solving, completely different problems that I'm solving, but it was the same actual individual, right? Different avatar, same in terms of like values and things like that. But what I'm looking at in terms of, the problem that they want solved, that it changed, right? From the avatar perspective, because before I was movement stuff and now it's online business and now it's messaging, right? But it's that same person came along with me. And if you broke through the trust barrier, that will happen, right? And you stay close enough within the same like niche. All right. So one thing we see here within this evolution and this pivot is moving from beginners to a more advanced, to a more advanced avatar. Right. So the thing to note here is that there will always be more beginners than advanced folks, right? This is actually what inspired today's episode. I was doing tactics programming, and the questions that are being asked in the Facebook group are clearly from folks that have a young training age, right? As it relates to working out. They're definitely like middle-aged women, and I'm middle-aged, right? So they're 40, it's like the 40 plus crowd. But the ones that are asking the questions aren't like me. Like they don't have this 25 plus year training age. They are new to doing these, at least new to doing this kind of stuff, right? Which is great for folks that continue to be enthralled by solving the same problems, right? If that's you, you're very fortunate because those beginners will continue to come through, right? And you will have this same avatar, the beginner, always and forever. There's always coming through, right? But when the questions from the beginner have you rolling your eyes and losing your patience, it is time to move along, right? And in this case, I think that there are two very common paths. And I alluded to one earlier, right? That first one would be completely new niche, new avatar, new direction, right? This is scarier. This is somewhat starting from scratch, depending on how different the niche is, right? I'm doing that a bit now with the, what is it called? My AI stuff, right? That is... I also am doing it somewhat with the pivot into messaging, right? But you see with the pivot into messaging, it's not completely unrelated. So folks will come along and plenty of the folks that are in my audience, will have use for the new service. But you definitely want to plan for this if you're going to be doing a full ass pivot because your whole audience will not come along. And if it's a super different niche, maybe none of the audience comes along, right? Understand that if it's a completely different niche, your current audience likely will not come along, right? So for me, I have two parts here. Me, that's like with AI. That's a completely different niche. That's a fun side quest for me. I did not expect anyone to come along with me. And I was like, all right, I just got to build this. And if there's anybody, I figured there'd be a handful of people, but I knew it would not be some massive, like everyone's interested in it. Though I do think with time. But anyway, that's a topic for a different podcast episode, for my other podcast, honestly. But as it relates to this pivot, if you go into a completely different niche, you move in completely new audience, remember, build the audience first, attract the audience first, then productize the service. Don't just be like, oh, I'm going to build this business and like build these services and then like, hopefully I can attract someone. That is backwards and it will not work, right? So remember, we're in phase 3. This is the pivot. 2 parts to this pivot. 1, new niche, new avatar, new direction, right? This is why I wanted step 2 first, or phase 2, where you build up money and you save money so that you have a bit to float you as you make this change. Option 2 within this phase 3, right? Option 2 within the pivot is to solve the same or similar problems, but for a more advanced avatar and likely in a more one-on-one setting. So I still do social media stuff with my one-on-one clients. There's one in particular I'm thinking about that I do more than other people. I offer Instagram guidance to my Lecture Mind folks. I'm absolutely still doing online business coaching. I'm coaching launches and offer creation, but it's for more advanced online business owners. It's not for beginners, and it's definitely not at scale, right? So I'm not running it as like some like webinar or workshop for everybody, right? So I'm still doing the same problems, right? But I have changed the avatar from like a beginner, from an intermediate business owner into the more advanced business owner, right? So you can see clearly I'm doing a hybrid of the two options within phase 3, right? Which is the new niche, which is messaging, but then I'm also still doing the old stuff, online business coaching, Instagram stuff, but that's for a more advanced avatar, right? Which has always been my approach to things. I'm very much not a burn the ships kind of person. So like I'm doing this with the new stuff, but I am making sure I'm doing the old stuff so that I am not poor. And also, I still like it. It's just like, who do I want to do this with? And this is a conversation that I had. I'm trying to remember with someone on one of my friends on Voxer. But sometimes we as humans aren't necessarily the best at figuring out why we feel a certain way. And if you take a moment and for like, oh, I don't like doing this, it could be that you just don't like doing that thing with that specific person and with that avatar. But maybe you really do like online business, but not with the beginner. You've moved past it because you don't like the questions and the kind of support they need. You like the more advanced person. All right? But again, things to remember as we switch avatars, there will always be more beginners than there will be more advanced people. So, things to consider there. All right. So, it's also impossible to divorce yourself from your past experiences and your past accumulated knowledge. Everything bleeds into everything else. So yes, I'm still using my PT knowledge. I've been doing that. It never went away. The way I liken things, the way I explain things. And I'm actually doing a lot of website copy for PT practices, pelvic floor PT practices in particular. So having that knowledge is helpful. And so it's like, you never like, I'm just a new person. I'm not talking about this stuff anymore. Maybe that happens for you, but definitely hasn't been the case for me. And I wouldn't expect it to be the case for most people. So all this yapping to say, if you feel like you're outgrowing your avatar, you're not alone. From a business perspective, namely a messaging and marketing perspective, it is important to know who you want to help, or to figure out at least who you want to help and what you want to help them with, so that you can speak directly to them and attract them. Plug, not shameless at all. If you want help with any of the messaging things, Moosey's barking. If you want help with any of the messaging things, check out the messaging offers, or you can shoot me a DM, shoot me an email if you're not sure which one would be the most helpful. But I am deep in all the things. I am enjoying all of the things. And yes, I'm doing a lot more copywriting. It is happening. So hit me up if you got questions, thoughts, ideas, wishes, anything. But I'm going to wrap it up there. All right, I'm going to wrap it up there. As always, endlessly, one more time, endlessly appreciative for every single one of you. Until next time, friends, Maestro out.